And right off the bat, Rochelle, I'm thinking of that grant that's floating around right now from Digital Main Street. I know that there's some guidelines as far as like understanding if you can like if you're able to register for that. And Cheryl, I know we've talked briefly about that.
Yeah.
But I believe that that's gone out via email to anybody here today. If not, we'll put you on the list and make sure that you get that information.
Cool. It's a great program. There's a lot of information in it. And so even, if you go through and you don't even qualify, you get a lot of really great information through it.
100%. And just so that everybody's clear on what we're talking about an initiative by the government of Canada to incentivize people to start investing in their digital brand, their digital presence, and they're actually donating dollars towards you being able to do that. I know I've had several conversations with several people here around that, but just want to continue to spread that awareness. I was thinking of that as you were talking, Joel. We'll jump right back in here. I'm going to go the reverse actually and start the Q&A from where we just left off with Joel. Joel, even if it's not a question that you can think of off the top of your head, maybe just kind of explain where you're at and some things that you're looking for assistance with.
Sure. Well, I know that one of the things that I'm mostly struggling with right now is content to post. And mostly because, like, when I had the other business, like, we had people in all the time. I could take photos of people, videos of people throwing axes and having a great time and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have that right now because we don't have a physical space. Not yet, anyway. So I'm actually I'm very close to signing a lease deal, getting a space downtown there and all that. But again, without people in it, without like actually expressing, the great time people can have with axe throwing, the content seems flat and dry without being able to post stuff with people in it. I've taken some stuff of myself or whatever, but that only goes so far. So I'm just sort of, I guess, like, I keep like, I'll come back to it later, and then I don't.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is very interesting, and I'm going to start with the point of documenting, because I think that that's an underutilized way to put out content on social media. Documenting versus creating something from scratch. You're really just telling the story of what's happening in the now. And there's a phrase going around, marketing for the now, and I love it, because it's like, okay, well, how do we market right now? What's going to work right now, not what worked a year ago or what's going to work 6 months from now, like in the present, because that's really what's the most relevant. For you, Joel, and this is cool because you are a media company. And it's interesting because I always tell people to be a media company first and then be whatever it is that you are. So axe throwing, videography, whatever, but start by being a media company. And what I mean by that is you're putting out content really that makes you a hub, makes you a center of information, whether it be, you're sharing stories within your community, you're sharing stories within your industry, et cetera, you become the hub. Like, I'm thinking about, and for you specifically, Joel, I would take the example from ESPN. NBA is on lockdown right now. There's nothing really going on, but yet every 9 a.m. Standard Eastern time, you'll see them live. What are they talking about right now? They're talking about players' reactions to the lockdown. They're talking about social issues and all of these different things that are happening that affect the space within where they operate. I think it's a cool opportunity for you to kind of get in a space where maybe it gives you time to reach out to people that have dealt with you in the past and do a bit of an interview, like just interview them and say, hey, how are you feeling about the fact that you can't go out and do certain things like axe throwing or whatever, like start it, like you could start a show. Like I'm so huge on people doing podcasts because I just think it's really, really great content. It's so easy for you because you just have to have the same 8 questions in your holster for every podcast episode you do, and the content becomes the responses that you get from the other individuals. Now people in the community want to watch you because you're featuring people in the community. That's
Right.
how that works. You become the hub of information about what's happening in the now. So instead of creating, now you're documenting and sharing that via social. That is what type of content I think for you should go out specifically right now. And it's good for retention too, by the way, and continuing that engagement, because the people that worked with you in the past, now you're giving them a different way to engage with you in the right now. So when you are open, they're more likely to be like on the pulse of when that is, because you
Right.
took the time to continue that engagement even when things were shut down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's actually really a really great idea, and it sort of got me thinking then too. I've been in touch with the International Axe Throwing Federation. We're looking to affiliate with the IATF, and they're actually the ones that had started the whole axe throwing thing as a sport. Back in, was it 2006 or something like that in Toronto. I've got one of those guys online that I could probably set up a call with him and discuss, passive axe throwing, present of axe throwing, future of axe throwing, stuff like that. I think that would be actually really cool, because that was the guy I was talking to. Was one of the three original guys that started it, and he's sort of my liaison with the IATF to get that affiliation now. So.
Well, the beauty for you, Joel, is that you have a skill that very few people have, and which is being able to chop up video, right? Yeah. Like if you get a 30-minute long conversation via Zoom or Hangouts Meet, or an hour long conversation, even a half hour, like you're looking at potentially 30 pieces of content from that alone, like that's easy. And you have the skill. That's the hardest part for most people, is just have the ability to chop up video. You already know how to do that. That's your business. Yeah. So in my mind, it's like this is a super easy pivot for you. And I love your idea about talking about industry and where it's going and prediction, like all that type of stuff. Like that's like having your finger on the pulse of what's going on. I like it too, because when I do those type of interviews, especially with people in my industry, oftentimes I find I'll learn something along the way as well. So not only am I getting the content, I'm learning something, and oh, by the way, building a synergy with another human being that does what I do. And business has been passed around quite a bit through those type of relationships in my world. So the variables of success and benefit to you are endless.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've since COVID hit, I just felt like the whole thing got put on pause. It's like, oh well, like we can't head with the space, we can't book things, we can't get people throwing axes, we can't create content because there's nobody to take a picture of. But I've posted a couple pictures of me holding an axe up to a target and stuff like that, video of me throwing, like that kind of stuff. But again, it gets old fast, and I don't want to keep just posting that kind of stuff. So I think pivot, don't pause. I mean,
I love that phrase.
I did have other things to consider as well, and so unfortunately, like the business itself as a whole did get put on hold, because I had to pivot my other business and I had to pivot my family, But it's getting back into picking this back up. I'm really looking forward to what kind of stuff I can get on rolling, and this idea about starting a show or like doing some discussion guests and all that kind of stuff, I think is a really great idea. So thank you.
Yeah, and on that point too, just quickly, Joe, before we go to the next question, like I'm very interested in you talking to, you talk to a John or a Pat about, and then they start to kind of open up to you about, oh yeah, like when I was doing axe throwing, like it was good for me, because that was a point in my life where things were low. Like it was a way for me to relieve stress. Like where I'm going. Like there's a story behind.
I'd made a mini documentary already with the previous axe throwing club about a woman who picked up axe throwing as a catharsis for her cancer treatment. It was something that, you know, she was going through treatments. She really, you know, wanted to pick that up and sort of like, you know, visualize her tumor and like, you know, chopping at it and stuff. And so I had made this mini documentary, put it out. It was like 3 minutes long or something like that. But yeah, I could probably invite her back to discuss about that again, because that was all under the previous branding. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because, you know, it's true. Axe throwing, it means different things to different people, and it can be very profound, you know, depending on who it is that picks it up as part of their identity. And that's what I'm looking forward to offering in Belleville now too, because, you know, it's like axe throwing, it was fun to go to, but being an axe thrower is very different than just going to it once, and people don't really have that opportunity in Belleville yet. So I'm looking forward to sharing that.
Just as a note, Joel, I mean, if you're looking for content ideas, for what it's worth, I don't know how valuable it is to you, I would be glad to talk to you about it. I am a big proponent for axe throwing. I'm pretty stoked about it. I wish I had more time to do it. Now is not the season, but it's coming. So if you want to sit down and talk and get something that you can use, I'm super pumped to talk to you about axe throwing. From a ground level, like just simple hobbyist of it, so to speak. Yeah, I've got lots of great things to say about it that I think would encourage people, and I would love to share. So just let me know.
There you go. There you go.
Much appreciated.
Content in the making. Love it. Love it. Okay, let's go to Cheryl.
Okay, so what do you want to know? My biggest challenge?
All of it.
You can talk challenge.
All of it. That's
the opportunity to ask your question.
All of it. Okay. Where would I even start? I guess for me, I'm the one that keeps saying pivot, don't pause, pivot, don't pause, pivot, don't pause. And for me, it really strikes with you, Josh, saying marketing for the now. Because I think some of the conversations that I was having for people were really relevant to pre-COVID, but didn't really reflect or resonate for what's going on right now. And so even a conversation that I had with someone yesterday where we were talking about how the difference, it's just finding that network, even that space to be able to talk about what's going on in your career or your business. And right now we're unloading on our spouses because that's who we are in close proximity with, which is great that you have that partner to unload on. And it's not great because your partner is not that person to unload on. So it was interesting where we were talking about how for me, even like I've created this space for women to be able to talk about what they're experiencing in their career and in their business. But I hadn't until prompted yesterday, really through a conversation, really delved into the fact that we need to have this space as business owners to talk about business, where our counterparts, like my husband has his career, his job, he doesn't always understand the challenges in business. Or it's just different. Or talking with him, he wants to solve it for me. He wants to make it better or fix it for me. Whereas I want to have the conversation and develop my own strategies, or just have a sounding board that isn't necessarily there to fix it for me. So talking about that yesterday, and just with you saying, Josh, like market for the now, and even the conversations, it's sparking in me to have conversations with people about how are you really living life on purpose, even though we're in a pandemic, even though we can't. And me too, Joel, I'm like, I haven't done axe throwing yet, but I really want to try it. I like archery, so I have a compound bow, so I like that sport, but yeah, I'm really excited to try it. But it's because for me, a component of me living life on purpose is living every day and trying new things and doing things. And with the pandemic, that's really halted a lot of ways. So I had to look even within myself to pivot, but not pause. How am I still living on purpose every day? And I think that would be an interesting conversation with my community to really explore how, especially as women, I deal a lot with women. If you have kids at home and you are trying to do the homeschooling piece and trying to work, and, you know, we used to joke and say, did LCBO deliver, right? Because how are we getting through this day? And now my friends are joking and saying, are we buying kids school clothes for fall, or are we buying LCBO gift cards? Like, where are we at? And I think to have that conversation and really, you know, dive into that would be meaningful for my network, and definitely something that I've overlooked, just having that conversation piece, not necessarily put out formatted content, just having the conversation.
I love how you brought this up, Cheryl. Because honestly, and that's what I was thinking for you, is like I'm a big believer of like not waiting for people to make a move, like to be able to do the thing that you want to do. So for example, like networking, like I know like there's one networking group that I was a part of that was still going during COVID, but I had a friend that like reached out to me and she was like there's nothing out there that I'm a part of, like, and we just went ahead and created something out of thin air, and like now we have like, you know, regular people attending. But the point is that we didn't wait for, you know, somebody else to create, like we just created that space to be able to have those conversations. So now I'm in 2 networking groups that meet, and we really just open up about, you know, what's going on in business, to your point, Cheryl, and talking about that. And I know you have the Facebook page group already, which is great. I'm interested too in you doing the interviews, whether it be one-on-one or once a month, doing like a group virtual meeting or something. And it doesn't have to be specific to necessarily what you do, and providing value that way, because I know you have your CEO day and that, but maybe even just a debrief where people can unload. You provide that space on a monthly basis, so it's more consistency, and then it's building brand, right, in perpetuity. So I see that so strongly for you, because again, it's that connection. You see that as a need right now, because you know, like you're experiencing it, so you know it's a need. I think you should create a podcast and go.
Yeah.
Invite guests, like reach out to people on your LinkedIn and say, hey, I started a podcast. Would you like to be my first guest? Like, I have yet to have anybody say flat out no to me to be on my podcast.
Yeah.
Like, people typically feel like, oh wow, like in a lot of cases they've never done it before. So it's new to them, and it's almost exciting. So they're like, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds like fun. You're not asking anything of them that's uncomfortable. Like, they're excited about it. Great way to network too, by the way. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and one thing you said earlier on that I kind of wanted to express I resonated with, Cheryl, was when you talked about talking about business with your spouse, right? So my wife is familiar with me having a full-time employed job. She's quite comfortable with that. It's easy. But she doesn't get the part of me that's now looking at our life beyond someone else providing for me and in exchange for my time. Right. She can't understand that. So something I just wanted to maybe just encourage you with and say, yeah, that's exactly, I've been experiencing that, where I've got visions of how this business starts to launch and actually get off the ground. I mean, it's coasting right now, and that's great for right now, but I'd like to see it go somewhere. When I start talking about, here's how we'll do it, for me, it's totally possible. Like, I'll just do this, and this. This is the way I'm going to do it. And for her, it's like, oh yeah, but what about, and thinking about the things that you would think about when you're used to having a job. What about benefits? What about how will you know where the money's coming from? And I think of that clip from this is literally the 3rd time in 2 days that I've used this reference. If you grew up in the 80s, you watched the movie Ghostbusters, the original one, and there's a scene where they get kicked out of the university and all their grants get canceled, and Ray Stantz and Peter Venkman are outside drinking from a paper bag talking about what the heck they're going to do, and they're getting excited about all these ideas, and then at one point Ray Stantz, who's the little more timid one, stops and goes, "Where are we going to get the money for this?" And Pete Venkman's like, "I don't know." I don't know, right? Like, but he's totally comfortable with not knowing. That's kind of where I'm at, right? And my wife is not there. She's Ray Stantz. She's worried about it. So I 100% appreciated that, because this person's my chief confidant, but I can't speak to them. And the other side of that, by the way, which I also appreciated, is this person wants to give you solutions to the problems you're expressing, but they don't understand. So how could they? It's not that I just want to come up with it by myself. It's like, I'm not trusting you as an advisor for this. I just kind of need someone to listen to. And you don't want to dismiss their thoughts, because actually my wife has come up with some pretty good ideas for me. But at the same time, your husband maybe isn't the best advisor. So I really appreciated that. Just wanted to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Very good. Very good. Well, let's go to you, Aaron, on that point.
Yeah. Well, I can kind of speak to how I've moved the ball forward since the last time I got to speak with you guys, which is,
let's go there.
So just a precursor. I've been slow at everything I've ever done my entire life, right? You could stay 15 minutes later in school to get the work done, and maybe I just was the only one who stayed late, but like I felt like I was slower than everyone, and to some degree I still feel that way, and I'm okay with it. I worked call center jobs. When I did, productivity scores were low. I didn't take as many calls, but quality scores were always high, so I was always right on the script, but I never got the calls up to where they wanted. No one ever really seemed to mind, so I think I'm okay with that quality in myself and embracing it, so that I'm not beating myself up at it. But in so saying, I'm saying that to say, like, I've made a couple of small steps. The couple of small steps I made were, number one, I published my Facebook page. So it's been sitting unpublished, not done yet. All I did was I took some pictures that I had gotten done and my logo, and just put them up as my cover photo, and did an introductory post that just said, "Here's who I am." And then I published it. And that's all I did. I'm not pushing it. I'm not creating content yet. The other thing that I did was I started coming up with a plan for how I would actually employ social media, like what it would look like. I determined that Instagram for me is going to be a more spontaneous thing that I'm going to, interact with so many times per week, right? So I'm going to aim to do it 3 times a week. It might be 4, it might be 5, right? Who knows? But it'll be a little more spontaneous with something I'm dealing with in the moment that's useful. Facebook will be more curated. Twitter will be spontaneous. LinkedIn will be more curated. On top of that, I came up with the idea of, I set a goal for myself that I wanted to have 12 blog ideas, 12 video ideas, and what was the other thing? Got it right here. 12 podcast ideas. So to your point, Josh, you've inspired me to like really jump on that. But I didn't want to start it halfway, because I know my propensity is if I don't have some level of organization to start, it's not going to end well. So I don't want to over prep, but I definitely don't want to under prep. I came to a conclusion. You tell me what you think about this. I thought it was great. This was really powerful for me. I came up with, some ideas for my blog, and then I came up with some ideas for producing little videos, and then I came up with some ideas for podcasts. And then I suddenly realized that actually you could have a blog that can easily be translated into a 1-minute or 2-minute video. That same 1 or 2 minute video idea can be translated to a podcast. So you literally can have content going across all of those platforms that then you then stagger in where you actually release it. So that made things way easier, because then suddenly now I've got a list of like 24 things, which on paper for me now is 48, 68, 72. I've got 72 bits of content prepared to be produced, like the ideas anyways, not completely.
That's why podcasting is so powerful. That
Yeah,
is
and
exactly why it's so powerful.
well, and in the big picture, it's like you've got a podcast, which you're going to have, and just as an example, just to let you know kind of where I'm at, I've got the podcast idea is, talking about vision versus mission, right? So distinguishing between vision versus mission. So you do a whole conversation with someone who can speak into that, and you can have a dialogue on, or maybe even a few people, whatever. And then great, you release that. But also you can produce a 1-minute quick take on vision versus mission, where it's really digestible, extremely quick. Conversely, you can take that podcast, dice it up into other little bits and conversations. That's even more content. And you can write an actual blog piece for your website on vision versus mission. So that was revolutionary to me. So now I'm sitting here with a spreadsheet that's got, 72 plus ideas for content, and it's growing daily, because every time I come up with an idea, just add it, and it's every time I get one idea, it's 3 ideas. So maybe an encouragement for everybody. That's how I've moved the ball forward. It's not a whole ton, but it's kind of big for me anyways. So beyond that, I haven't really started actually executing a whole lot of this, because I think I've expressed this. I'm not in a giant rush to really start launching it right now, because I don't have a plan. I don't have an exit strategy for my job yet.
Okay, I want to touch on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to wait till I've exited to start doing it. I want to start doing it as soon as possible. But priority is going to take over. So that's where I'm at over the last little while.
Okay. So 3 things. Number 1, you like the thing of, and just to break it down, like why the podcasting, it just covers everything, because you have video, audio, graphic. Like those are the 3 ways to communicate via social, and podcasting covers all 3 of them. So that's number 1. Number 2, the thing that I would say, as far as, because I know you're planning, Aaron, the thing that I'll say, and I've observed this with other businesses, is the ones that are using this time to plan, but they're not executing, are falling behind the ones that are executing right now. So just so that you're aware of that.
Yeah, well, let me push back on that a little bit. And this way, I don't look at this time as any different than any other time. I know that it is different, but I'm going, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, what would I be doing now? Well, the answer to that would be, my plan would be work a full-time job, leave that full-time job by June of 2021. And that's the plan. And this time would be strategically actually looking at how I exit, how I'm going to execute my social media. So I'm actually working a plan that I set out. I am literally working the plan that I started at the beginning of the year. And so I don't feel bad about not executing right now. I don't feel like I'm making a strategic error. I'm actually working what it is I'm doing. And maybe my plan isn't ideal. That's possible. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's what I set out to do. And again, this goes back to the slow thing, right? I have a tendency to be impulsive, right? Something looks good and I kind of jump at it. That's what I've done my whole life, is someone says something, I go, oh yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to roll with that. And it goes against what I said that I was going to do. And then it fails for some reason. Then I have this out to say, well, the reason it failed was because someone told me what to do, right? Whereas now I'm trying to, I did this actually at some point. I can't remember what content that I did. It's a little while back, where the theme of it was, no, I remember what it was. It was my Mo Mondays. You were actually there, Josh. And it was, don't tell me the rules. Don't tell me what to do, right? You can break the rules. Just forget them. Because when people tell you the rules, you're inclined to go, okay, that's the way it is, as opposed to saying, no, I'm going to determine the way it is. I'm going to do the best thing. I'm trying to walk in that. I don't want to eliminate advice, and I don't want to dally on executing. But again, for me, there's a little bit of self-awareness going on here, which I want to do it now. I just want to do it right. And I want to know what I'm doing. I'm getting closer. I don't want to. make
Can,
excuses.
can we dig in on that a little bit? Because
Yeah, sure, man.
I'm curious to the why. Like I'm more curious around the why. Like are you like are you thinking like if it's not out, if you don't put it out in the right way, like whatever that is, like is there repercussions that you're thinking of in your mind for that as a result? Like I wanna understand like what you think would, like the why you're not wanting to put it out until like in your mind it's right.
Sure. So three, we'll say two levels. So one is the actual launching of the business, right? So when that business launches, that is not just an economic decision. It's not just an entrepreneurial strategic decision. It's a personal family decision because I'm not the only party involved. And this is the dynamic that I've had to explain a few times, is that I need my wife on board with this. And as we talked about earlier, Cheryl, like she's not right on the same page with me. I literally could drop my job right now and just go for it. I think I'd be okay. But if I was to do that, it would stress my bride out so much. It's not loving, right? So it's not a loving thing for me to do. So I had to come up with a way of being able to roll this out so that she could be buying into it all the time. And I'll be honest with you, I'm saying June of 2021 is when I would jump off. That's the date she knows about. That's when I've put out there and said there. I don't actually think that's going to be the case. I don't think this will wait till then. So I'm trying to work more towards like the fall, or at the latest, sort of the end of the year. That's the very latest that I want to be looking at. I'd like to start 2021 not having a full-time job and just trusting in that it's going to be okay and then I'm taking care of things. So that's the first element, is my wife. The second element is, again, that self-awareness piece. It's not that I don't want to put it out until it's right. It's if I don't at least have a launch point to get started and build the habit, that's for me a big thing, building the habit, right? It takes me time. I don't know if it's the same way for you guys. If I don't have that sort of bedrock to start it, it's not going to work. I've started and dropped so many things, and that could be discipline on my part. I'm not even close to a perfect person. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to honestly gauge where I'm at. So the short way of answering that, Josh, is part of it is personal and family dynamic, which no one can speak to except for me and my wife. But then the other part of it is maybe it's a little bit of self-doubt and a bit of consciousness. I'll take that. But I just feel like I'm being wise, if that makes any sense. It's not about not wanting to release it. It's just wanting to understand what it is I'm going to be doing so that I have a bedrock to start the habit.
Okay. So here's the thing I'm going to encourage you to do from that, Aaron. I think for you to start creating content now, and like I would never give you the advice not to put it out, because I truly believe this in my gut. The person that puts out content versus the person that doesn't, they're already ahead. What I will say though is I think that you can create content right now, even if you choose not to put it out. Like you can set up a call with somebody next week and do, I don't know, maybe something like we're doing here, like just like one-on-one, and then just record it. Like even if it's I don't know, like even if it's like a client you're currently working with or whatever. I think the content part is there for you right now, but I completely understand where you're coming from. I think execution, there has to be some execution there is what I'm going to push back on. Like even if it's not actually putting the content out, like if you're not wanting to do that right now, which I would also encourage you to do, but even if it's not that, even just creating the content, so when that plan that you have in place is ready, the content is there. You don't have to think about creating it once you're ready. You already have backlog of content like ready to go.
That's part of the plan, and just maybe it got missed in this. I've already started creating content. I've already written 1.5 blog posts. My daughter's looking in here. I've already written 1.5 blogs so far, and they're actually fairly simple. I've already started scripting the short videos, right? So I've started creating the content. I haven't necessarily started shooting the content. I most certainly haven't posted the content. But again, for me, having launched and published my Facebook page, that was content creation. I'm posting a little bit more on Instagram than I have. I kind of actually in the last week have been a little bit. So yeah, just so that you're not too discouraged. And I appreciate I've always appreciated your encouragement. So like, yeah, absolutely. I am slow, but I'm not stagnant. Let's put it that way. So great advice.
Just to go off of that, and kind of for like everyone, from like the little, I guess, like micro level, one thing that we've been encouraging people to do is to look at 15 seconds. Right now, that's what a TikTok video is. And if you look at how long people are watching your videos on like Facebook, they're usually not watching more than 5 or 10 minutes. So if you can get 15 seconds, and if you have a 30-minute long conversation, that's a lot of 15 seconds where it can be, you know, quick snippets. Then you have how much content, right? It's not even like, oh, I have, you know, 5 pieces within that. You have a lot. So like looking at that perspective of it. And then for like Aaron, for example, you said that you have a blog and a half and you're writing scripted ones. Try even not writing scripted ones, but just talking about your blog and then taking 15 seconds from that. And then even if you only talk about it for a minute, you could get like 2 content pieces that you can then use, and it's easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I share a perspective, Aaron? Because I totally understand, you know, the kind of differencing between yourself and your wife. My mom tells me all the time she's so proud of me. And then she says, and when are you going to get a real job? Oh, because are you getting a job now? Because she just doesn't understand how it works. So the one thing that I have found, and even with my husband who works in the engineering consulting firm, and he built building science department like ground up in his company. So he had to, you know, go out and find that business and make those connections, but he still doesn't have the entrepreneur mindset or that drive in that sense, right? Because jumping into that, you really have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and seeing greater vision and believing in what's going to come. And so I found, even in talking with him about, you know, me chasing the business and what I'm going to be doing and where I'm building it, and when I'm really talking about these bigger visions that I have, explaining it in the context of how that actually supports our joint vision. And I just, again, where I said talking about having that right space to talk in, I don't share all of my crazy wild visions with him, just because he would be like, what do you mean we're going to have a helicopter and you're getting your pilot license and, you know, you're buying the cottage on Sandbanks next summer, pardon me, and right, all of this stuff. It's too much. So yeah, I can completely understand where that, you know, if she doesn't come from that entrepreneurial understanding space, that it's hard to understand why someone would give up security.
Yeah. Speaking my language, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Great feedback, and thank you everybody for sharing. There's oh, he left. Yeah, there's a lot of dynamic when it comes to like family life and being able to balance that with work and the thing that you want to do. Yeah, and I think groups is like groups of like-minded people is a great way to do that.
One thing I did want to kind of say about Aaron's piece there too. I was going to chime in and then just decided not to, but I feel it's worth saying. Having started up several things myself now, you know, this is the 3rd business startup I'm into. This is, you know, I've started up a not-for-profit organization. I guess part of my journey of growth has been letting go of what I thought that it should look like, and just jumped right into what it can look like. So I don't know, I guess to put it into a bit of context, like after graduating college, I went to film school, film and TV production, and really wanted to like join the camera union in Toronto, and had, all these grandeur visions of, oh, I'm going to work on big movie sets and do that kind of work. My wife hated it in the city. She just hated it there. We lived there for a year while I was finishing up school. She was in school herself as well. And, she just really was not happy there. So we made the tough decision, tough for me, that, we'll move back to the Bay Quinte area here, and we'll just see, like, I guess what else I can do, because my preference was very much that she be happy and not, feel confined to the apartment in the city and feel isolated because she's not around the people that she loves and that kind of stuff. That was way more important to me than any vision I might have had for what things could have been. So that way, I guess the start of, my letting go of ideals. And then, I worked training at one of the call centers. I wasn't training, I did the training, and then managed to get a job at another firm down in the county. Oh, looks like Aaron's not quite on anyway, but I guess just for everybody else, just to continue on that line. So like I got laid off from my job doing video editing, and I was faced with that decision. It's like, well, what's this going to look like now for my career? I got laid off. There's not really an industry here for film and video production. I can go back to the call center, or I can take that step on my journey and start something and see what it can become. And I guess that was the pivotal moment in my life, because we were pregnant at the time. I got the job, we got pregnant 2 months later, and then 2 months later I lost the job. So, I was like, things were looking great, this is security. And then all of a sudden there wasn't. So, it kind of started that whole process of like, okay, well, let me just let go of that whole concept of what I think security looks like, what I think, life should, contain, and just see where this step takes me, because there's not really a better option. I certainly don't want to see, a cubicle, 9 to 5 every day for the rest of my life. That's not the life that I want for me. And not to say that your day job or anything would be anything close to that, because I know you love what you do for your day job and all that kind of stuff. But that whole concept of letting go what I expected and just taking the first step and seeing what can happen was the best decision of my life, because that was when I started Prime Focus, and that was 8 years ago now. And I've been working at it full time. It's been hard. It's been challenging, ups and downs, the whole roller coaster that an entrepreneur would go through. But along the way, I caught greater vision. And it wasn't that like, I was in that position where I was already free falling. There was no ground underneath me. So I was like, all right, well, let me just flap these wings and see what'll happen. So, but, whether I was doing that from a falling position or from the ground, just start flapping your wings, man.
Yeah.
You will fly.
And to, again, sort of to come back to something I said, I'll echo it so you understand too. Like I resonate with I agree with all of it. I would quit my job now. Like, I'm not afraid. I don't think for a second I couldn't do it. And the one thing that this pandemic environment has reinforced in me is that I'm responsible for my production. So whether that production is me going out and offering, what it is that makes me valuable in the marketplace, and that could be anything. Right. I've done a number of things in my business already that I didn't even know I was going to do. I just kind of rolled with the punches. Someone had a need and I was like, yeah, I could do that. I presented something I was able to do and someone said, yeah, I'd like that. Right. So you just don't know. So I'm actually, for lack of a better term, I'm drinking that Kool-Aid. The interesting thing and the parallel is the decision that I would make to do that would be making it for the other human in my house who's totally not ready to make that decision. I'm going to have to make that decision for her at some point. The question is, at what point do I make it to minimize that space where she's stressed out? Because she's going to be stressed out. The question is just, how do I minimize that for her benefit?
Right. I guess the point of what I was trying to say isn't so much like, make the jump right now because, you can, what I'm saying, I guess, is to let go of the ideal of what it needs to look like for you to feel free to move forward with your business. Because, that could be just part-time for now. You could, I understand that maybe there's, some concern about like your capacity, because as a family man myself and, having run 2 businesses and stuff, like my capacity was definitely stretched. But at the same time, it's like if you want to, you can fit it all in. And just to let go of the idea, I guess, that things need to look a certain way for, like, I'm doing my job, but I can't really jump into the business until like I let go of the job and make that leap. Maybe there's some way that you can smooth them both together, run them both harmoniously, and still maintain a good home life. I know it's possible. I've done it. Because I've let go of the idea of what it should look like. Yes, it's meant that I've, the longest work day I ever put in was like 36 hours straight, but, and I'm not saying do that. But what I'm saying is that the letting go of my ideal of what it needed to look like for me to feel comfortable moving forward, I needed to let go of it. And, that may be something, because like, I guess my own worst enemy in the beginning was my definition.
Yeah,
I'm gonna jump in here. Like this is a great business conversation, and it's interesting around business, and like we talk about startups and new ventures all the time. Like there's, in my mind, there's like just one man's opinion. Like there's two ways you can do it. Like you can either just jump for like 2 feet in, stop what you were doing as a day job and just do it. Or you can build that thing up on the side. So work 9 to 5 at the job that you do have, and then work like 6 to 8 on the thing that you want to build. And by the way, I think that's what Aaron, I could be wrong, I think that's what he's doing right now, is working part-time on that other thing. Usually, like in an observation that I've seen is usually in any family situation, if there's opposition to jumping in to that thing, it's usually it's mostly financial. I'm not speaking directly to Aaron's situation. I'm just saying what I've observed as general. And the way that I would advise to kind of address that in a thoughtful way is to build that side gig up to the point where the financial benefit either matches or exceeds the current benefit of the thing that you're doing as a full-time in the now. And how you do that is you put out content. So put out the content, build that brand with people that know you, don't know you, and build it up to the point where that thing then takes over the thing that you're doing. This is why I always push putting out content, because like there's a number of people that I've dealt with that have reached out because of our content, because we're active, because we're putting out stuff, because we're engaging. Those people probably would have not reached out to us otherwise. So I'm always on the side of execution for that reason. But yeah, it definitely, like there's practical ways to approach this that benefits you as the human, because you have a dream to do something. You want that thing to happen for you. So how do we do it in a way that's beneficial to everyone, especially that person that's in the house with you, because that person is the most important person in your stratosphere. So how do we do it in a way that's, that benefits everybody? That's just some things that I've observed. We'll keep going. Let's go back to Cheryl.
Yes.
So podcasting, we talked a bit about that, and obviously, like, we're doing some work with you guys right now. What is like do you have any questions around like what things should look like going forward? Ideas about like how to, like, by the way, and I'll put this point out there too. This is a very practical thing. It's a very simple thing, and I know some of you are already doing it. Podcast episodes, when you're inviting people to be on your podcast, like the whole back and forth on like what time works for you, da da da. And I know, Cheryl, you already have this in place. Calendly is super, super good for getting people to book with you and not having to worry about the back and forth of figuring out a time. Very, very practical. Anybody that doesn't have it, I strongly suggest you look at it. It's free. At least I use the free version. I don't know if there's a paid version or not. I use a free one.
There is, yeah. And it's really cheap.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just practical, something I wanted to mention. That's how I go about just getting people to book for doing the podcast. Then I know it's within a time frame that works for me. I don't have to worry about it. Sometimes, a lot of times, people will like respond a week later, and then the podcast is like a week out, and I'll wake up and look at my calendar and be like, oh, I'm doing a podcast today. Like it just happens. I don't have to think about it, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah. So we'll any questions around like anything practical that you're wanting to execute on I love the group ideas for you. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I resisted it for quite a while. And even then when I started my group, because I just go in there and talk about my journey and talk about what I've experienced and my knowledge and share. And I thought about the podcast kind of component of it, and the technical aspect is what really pushed me back, because that's not my strength. So what do you, because you're obviously talking about the video component of it as well. So it's not just an audio anchor recording. So do you just do it on Google Hangouts? Do you just do it on Zoom and record and then create your snippets in through that?
I think right now that's probably the easiest way to do it. Like case in point, like I'm recording this right now. So after, what's going to happen is like we're going to chop this video up, and we're probably going to get like 30 segments out of this one video, because there's some really, really good back and forth here, and I appreciate all of you for that. And it's cool because like with this, like you set it up and press record. I typically will use Hangouts Meet. It just works better with like the camera that I have, but Zoom works great. Like that's a popular one. Like we're talking with a real estate agent around, like I know we can social distance outside. So I'm actually encouraging her to kind of set up a bit of a video where she has a past client of hers come to her house, show up and be on her back deck with a glass of wine. And just having a conversation about the process that they went through in buying. I'm actually trying to also get her to interview somebody that bought during COVID. Because to your point, Cheryl, and I love that you brought that up, like making it relevant to the now, marketing for the now. So the best way to do that is let's look at a situation that happened during all of this, and let's focus in on that. How did you navigate that? What was the buying process like, or what was the selling process like? But doing it in a way that's comfortable and entertaining as well, because we're like entertainment is what people look at. Like I want to engage. Usually, if I want to engage with content, it's because it's humorous, it's informative, it's entertaining in some way, shape, or form. So I think you can get really, really creative, and I'm a creative, so I love it. I'm thinking of you, Joel and Aaron. Like there's a lot of opportunity there as far as how you do it, but the most simplistic way is to do it in the format that we're doing it right now. You don't have to go outside of your living room or home office in order to accomplish it. And you could probably line up 3 interviews next week and have over 200 pieces of content out of those 3 meetings.
Yeah, I will definitely be doing that, because I just love having the conversation with people. When you talk about like showing your humor and whatever, clearly you haven't seen my helium-fueled motivational moments yet. But those are always fun. Not that
I was laughing at the video I was watching of you yesterday. That was very funny.
I give helium fueled motivational speeches to my husband's ball team normally, and they're not playing this year, but like even last year they're at like provincials and stuff like that. And so yeah, it is, I think it's good to be able to show your personality in through it, because someone that is just going to be completely, you know, entirely reserved is probably not the right person that's going to connect with me. But yeah, I love the idea of just being able to create this. So yeah, you've sparked some creativity here. So thank you.
And I'm going to touch on that a little bit deeper, because I think it's going to bring value to everybody here. Like, because like to give some context, like Cheryl did like a takeover in June, where essentially like it was pretty much the majority of it. She just posted like more so personal stuff. So whether it be like family, going out, doing things that were, very personable to her. And she got a lot of engagement from it. But one of the questions that came out of it, and one of the observations is, okay, but now how do we translate this to business? Like, how does that, start to kind of fill my pipeline? Because she has an email campaign set up and automated. And I'm going to get Rochelle maybe just to touch on email campaign automation, the benefit there, because I think it's something that pretty much any entrepreneur should have. And I'm just going to let Rochelle tell you why.
I love automations. I could talk about them for like an hour and a half alone. So we use ActiveCampaign, but I do know that like Constant Contact and MailChimp will also do automations for you. And essentially automations are, what can you do to, one, take stress off, and two, free up a bunch of time for you? So an example being, if you're hosting a event and you're individually sending out the emails, that takes a lot of time. It's stressful to keep track of it all. Automations can set that up for you. So you would have it so if you send out a newsletter saying these are our upcoming events, someone clicks on that link, then you have an automation that it triggers something that sends them an email that says, hey, we noticed that you're interested in this one area. Here's how you sign up. Or if you have a service that you'd like to offer and someone clicks on that link, you can then send them a service email that says, hey, we noticed that you're interested in graphic design. Here's a little bit about what we offer. Let's schedule a call. With automations, you can also kind of simplify if you have someone unsubscribing from an email list. So it would send you an email or put it in a form that says these people need to be deleted out of your system. And just, it allows you the ability to also track all of that information, which then gets you a whole bunch of like numbers, which are one of my favorite things, that just, they allow you to go back and say, okay, how do we do on this versus this year, right? Last year versus this year, last month versus this month. One way that we use the automations is for scheduling. So we will schedule emails out. So for example, we have this talk, we scheduled emails out a week in advance for everyone to get an email link, and then an hour before, and then right before it happened. So you don't have to go in and keep track of that. The system does it all for you.
And to touch on that too, like macro lens, like there's a lot of like customer retention is a big thing, and leaving money on the table with existing clients is a huge challenge for a lot of business owners. The automations that Rochelle is talking about is a really good way to keep that engagement going. So we're talking about social right now, obviously, but I'm suggesting that social should link to your sales funnel, and the sales funnel for the betterment of your business to help you thrive, especially in the now. Automated email campaigns is like critical, super critical. So that's that's one thing I'll offer in this conversation as value as well. It saves you a whole lot of time, and it allows you to continue to engage with existing clients and then also new ones. Give them something interesting that they can engage in and sign up for. And this is why I always come back to being the hub. Like if you're doing an event every month, and people are coming out to it, like people then become engaged. They sign up, they become, a part of your community, quote unquote. They'll continue to get those emails from you, and you can really start to target and make specific content for specific people, and then measure how it's doing. That is like the number one thing I think that a lot of businesses are missing, is the automation and having that way to follow up and continue that conversation.
It also allows you to see, like, you may think that you have one customer that's interested in one area, but putting those automations in and putting tags, so things that identify, okay, someone's interested in graphic design versus someone's interested in web hosting. Maybe they click on a link and you've never known that they're interested in that. So now you can go back and search, who clicked these links, who had these tags, and you can reach out again and just start that sales process and just continue it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
What were some of you mentioned some platforms that can execute this, like, well, mechanically, how do you implement automations?
So we use ActiveCampaign, but Constant Contact is the other one, and MailChimp does them as well. We like ActiveCampaign quite a lot just from what it can do. It essentially covers everything from like your sales to email campaign to tracking. And then each one is a little bit different, but ActiveCampaign has a specific section in it where you can go in and create as many kind of automations as you want, and you can make them active or inactive, and you can use the same automation over again and just update the information for like an event, or if you have a like consulting service. So it just helps save you time, which is always wonderful.
Cool. And these are subscription services, I'm imagining? Cool.
Yeah, and essentially, you guys all get them. You guys get newsletters from different organizations and whatnot. What I'm suggesting is, and again, I'm thinking of you, Joel, coming back to like acting as a media company, and then again, the content that you're putting it out. Social is a great way to do that. Email is a great way to do that, and having those automations set up. The other thing is like Tag Manager, like. You can set up ads via Facebook or Instagram, and you can do it where it attaches to a code on your website. So anybody that visits your site or has visited your website in the past, those ads will automatically get targeted to those people. These are like, people that you don't know. They're not in your pipeline yet. They haven't subscribed to your email list yet, but they visited your website. You don't know specifically who they are, but they visited your site. So there's different codes and things that you can put on your site that will allow you to target those people with specific ads, even dependent on like the page that they landed on and the thing that they were interested in. So there's a lot of neat automation stuff, to Rochelle's point, that you can implement. And this is the game changer, right? Like this is the stuff I'm talking about, everything that's happening in the now. Right? Like this is all needle moving stuff that's happening right now that affects business growth, actual business results for you in a marketing and business space. Let's keep going here. Let's go back to Joel.
All right. Yeah. So I'm kind of in the process of trying to figure out automation and like MailChimp and stuff. I've never run an email campaign or anything like that before. I think we tried to through the not-for-profit organization with one of the other volunteers that were on the committee at the time. They've since left, and we don't really have anybody managing that either. So I guess trying to teach myself a little bit more about this automation stuff. yeah, I don't know, like I think it's going to be valuable for me to learn more about, but I don't really, because again, content is a big thing. Like I'm still trying to learn the whole marketing for now bit, as like, you know, the majority of the videos and stuff I'm used to making were for you know, back when people would watch you know, 2-3 minutes and stuff. Like I've been shortening stuff down 60 to 90 seconds, you know, high impact, that kind of stuff for editing. And I'm looking forward to being able to create that kind of stuff for myself. But I guess just reprogramming my brain in terms of, you know, like I said about letting go of what I thought things should look like. I'm currently doing that with what I think my content and stuff should look like. So like the shorter, like 15-30 second pieces and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess just trying to, I don't know, keep refining, you know, that process, because like I can create all the content I want, but taking the time to sit down and you know, and design it, that's for me, I guess that's the more difficult part, because you know, I spent, you know, part of the week restoring my editing suite, you know, doing some of that organizational stuff internally. I spent part of it finishing up a project for a client. I spent, you know, there's all these other types of things that I need to be doing and applying the same skill set, but just in a different way. So when I'm doing stuff for clients versus for myself, you know, it's like, if I don't know, like the stuff I do for clients or the stuff that I do last for myself.
Is it, and to question a question there, Joel, like, is it a matter of like a time being the challenge to implement? Or is it a skill challenge? Like when we're talking about the email stuff, like, is it a time challenge or a skill challenge, or both around the email stuff?
I feel that it's not necessarily a time challenge. You know, there's plenty of time that, you know, people use in a day that could be spent on things that are more productive or less productive. I think for me, it's more of a mental energy thing. You know, when I talked about capacity, like it's like, I mean, sure, the pandemic has everybody running at lower capacity than normal, and that's okay. But you know, when it comes to things that I have the energy for, and you know, initiating something new versus finishing up something that's been outstanding, you know, it's always that toss up, because I mean, you know, having been in the business for a long time and like, you know, having recently moved my office back into my home and that kind of stuff, like there's all these other things that, like, you know, oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing that, I could be doing this, but you know what, it's exhausting, so I'm gonna go sit with my wife and have a drink, right?
I got it. I got it. So what you just said there, Joel, and I love that you brought this up, because this is something that I've been learning too, and I'm going to share it with everybody, is like the real zest to want to do one thing versus another. Like people call it laziness. Like if if there's a thing that you just really don't want to do, and what I'm learning is that it's actually not laziness. It's you just don't want to do that thing. Like that's just not the thing that brings you joy and you know, brings you happiness. So therefore it's just not the thing that you want to spend time and energy on. That doesn't make you lazy. It just means that you're super self-aware and you just know the things that you don't really want to spend time on. So I think from that perspective, then you just have, like, you know, you have a few options. Like either you get somebody to do it for you, or you just say, okay, well, I'm going to prior towards these other things that I like to do more over that, but I'll just carve out time for that, like in a week or so, and do that thing. So like it kind of comes down to that, but I don't think it's like, because I totally get where you're coming from, like the mental energy thing. And I think a lot of that actually just stems from, like, it's just not the thing that I like to do. Like, like there's some administrative stuff at OSM I just don't like to do, and I'll push it off, not because I'm lazy. It's just not the thing I'm super jazzed about, right? Like I'm aware of that. So I completely understand what you mean by that.
I think there is another element to it too there as well, though, because like when you're learning something new, right? It almost takes twice as much energy to like do it once it's versus something that you already know how to do or can do really well. So I understand that, like, yeah, some things you just don't want to do, some things require more energy for you to do. Like, you know, I look at myself as like, I have this, you know, tank of gas for the day, right? And it's like, to do this task for the client, we'll take this much of it. To do this task for maintenance, we'll do that much of it. To, you know, and it's like once the time you reach towards the bottom, you can still go and burn the candle at both ends, so to speak. But you know, you don't have that productive energy anymore to be able to like to invest yourself into it. At some point, you do have to consider yourself, you know, I'm done. I need to refill my tank so that I can keep going and doing well for my clients and this other stuff, right? Because, you know, some things are just non-negotiable. You have to do them. And sometimes they take more energy, more of your gas tank than others. But usually, like, the stuff that gets prioritized lower, you just don't have the tank for anymore. So for me, that's why they end up getting pushed off. I know, because, like, you know, it's like unfortunately, you know, my family and working from home is a part of that as well now. So like integrating that whole, like, I have my gas tank, you know, it's being picked away by all these, you know, mental energies, you know, pandemics, frustrations, and stress and all that kind of, like, all that stuff does pick away at your tank as well. So I don't know, that's personally how I find it anyway.
I find for me, and things that I've had to do is, because I experienced burnout in the most epic way. So I take medications, I have Addison's disease, I burned out my adrenal system. So I understand that whole burning the candle at both ends. I don't recommend it. But one of the big things I learned in that is really prioritizing what mattered most to me. And in order for me to grow my business, to be able to provide for my family, and be able to have the impact in my community that I envision, and even beyond my community, I had to identify the things that were really going to keep my tank filled and outsource the things that aren't. And so in some ways that meant that maybe the financial side for myself personally didn't grow as quickly, but my business was able to do it in a much more stable way and be able to scale and grow with good procedures in place. But it allowed me to then still be very present with my family. And be very present with my children and be able to be from anywhere that I need to be. So that is one thing that I really do encourage. And I know that I talked with Josh and said, he's jazzed about marketing. I'm not jazzed about marketing, right? It's just not what jumps me up in the morning and says, yes, I'm going to go and do this. Yeah. Aspects of it, like the creating of stuff, having the conversations, sure. Beyond that, I don't want to talk about it. So for me, I would push those things down. So to me, it's really important to be able to really realize that vision of my business, but that vision of prioritizing my family really required me making the decision to build my team.
100%.
Yeah, and I guess I find that, you know, for me as well, like, I'm not jazzed about marketing. That's why I consider myself a content creator rather than a marketer, because, like, I love shooting. I love creating something and packaging it up and putting it out, you know, putting it out there. But the promoting of it and stuff like that, that part is, you know, is tedious to me. So, yeah, I guess what it comes down to for me, and what I'm hoping to try to, you know, redefine for myself, is to, you know, to make marketing a bit more of one of those things that, you know, I intentionally place in there to use as part of my tank for it, because it's not just natural for me to put it there. You know, putting it higher on the list to make sure that it does get done. That's a challenge for me.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And by the way, like, it's funny, I'm thinking about my business coach, because he'll give this advice all the time. And Aaron, this might sound familiar to you, like the analysis of the bottleneck. Like, so as a solopreneur, like, you're the bottleneck pretty well, right? Like, anything that comes into the business, like, comes through you, and then you also do the output. So not only are you the sales guy, the operator, but you're also the technician, you're the person doing the actual work as well. So I think this is an interesting thing when we start to talk about, okay, well, what do we want out of this? That's why I do a lot of interviews where I ask people like what their why is, and what does their business look like in their eyes, like 5-10 years from now. Some people are completely content staying as they are, which is completely fine. And some people have aspirations to kind of grow things bigger. So I think having an understanding of that, and then saying, okay, well, if I do want to grow bigger than what I am right now, to Cheryl's point, like what are some things that I need to focus on and prioritize, because I know that that's going to grow the business. And then what are those 12 other things that are tedious to me and actually slow me down from doing the thing that I know is going to grow the business. And then again, it's like, you either automate it, delegate. I think there's another option too, but automate and delegate are the two things that come to my mind. And that's a big kind of a learning process for me too this year, is again, not focusing on the things that I know won't grow the company, focusing on the things that do, and then having people around you that can really help automate or delegate that process for us. So, but it all starts with that question of like, where do we see ourselves like 5 to 10 years from now? Like, what does that look like? And that kind of determines the conversation from there.